And I'll start us off. Count me down.
3, 2.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to episode 4 of GK4FREE. We are really excited this week because we're joined by our first current professional goalkeeper from the Montreal Impact, Evan Bush. Evan, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to this for about a week since you asked me, so I'm excited.
Well, look, I'm really glad that you're looking forward to being on a podcast where I drive home from work and lose connection and people listen. But maybe a few more people will listen because you're here this time. I really appreciate it. We chatted briefly before we started recording here. You and Will, our co-host, Will's here too. Will, say hi.
Hey, everybody.
You and Will actually met a couple years ago. Evan came down and did me and my family a huge favor. This kind of speaks to the kind of guy he is. He came down to help us out with a fundraiser for our first adoption. Those of you guys that know me know that we've adopted both of our kids, and there's a big cost involved in that. So Evan was really instrumental in donating his time and coming down to do a clinic for us where we were able to work with some keepers here in the area and raise some money to go to that. So just speaks to kind of the awesome guy that Evan is. I met him, I actually think I met you probably in maybe 07, because right when you were at Akron. I think you came and trained with us during the summer at Cleveland.
Yeah, either 06 or 07, somewhere around there. Yeah, I was still at Akron, and you were at Cleveland, and it was a great summer to be able to train with you guys. It was certainly a learning experience to go into a professional, as professional as there was in that area at the time, environment.
Yeah, MC Hudson Fields. I'm not sure. Yeah, so it was okay. We had a good group of guys. I think there was actually a pretty talented group of guys that had pretty decent pro careers there, and Evan was goalkeeper at Akron while Akron was really coming up and starting to make some noise on the national sort of scene. And then Evan went on after that to do great at Akron, then go on and play professionally, and that's where he is now. We'll get into kind of the details of that as we get into some of these questions. I have like one really, really wasn't on the question sheet that I sent you, and I've tried to get you. Yeah, I've been trying to get you. I tried to get you to answer this when you did like a live stream thing with Steve Clark on Instagram. I think maybe a couple months ago, and I kind of lurked onto that and tried to sneak on there and ask you the question. But ever since I've ever known who you were or seen you, you've always had a bald head, like not bald but shaved, like short, very short. And all of a sudden this year, at age what? How old are you now? 36,
34.
35, 34? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
34. I'm older than you. Now you've got all this hair. I didn't know you could do that. Like, where did it come from? What happened?
I don't know if it's a funny story for everyone, but it is kind of for me. Last year I got approached by a neighbor / parent of one of my kids' like schoolmates, and
Right.
said, "Listen, I got this. I'm trying to franchise this barbershop," and he had a couple locations in Montreal. He's like, "You'd be a great ambassador for us. If you come in, we give you the full service. Just post about it or whatever, and it'd be very helpful." And I had a shaved head at that time. I said, I'm going to be an ambassador for a barbershop. Look at me. He's like, no, go talk to my guy, and he'll try to develop something for you. If nothing else, they do the hot towel shave, which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
So
I do that a lot.
I did that for a couple months, and they started growing my hair out, and I kind of started liking it. And then about 2 months after I started doing it, the guy that approached me initially, he ended up pulling out of the business, and There was kind of a bad breakup between him and the head barber / co-partner or whatever. But long story short, I still go back there. The barber and myself are good friends now, and I'm still trying to help the barber shop.
Yeah, for sure.
I like the hair. I wish I had less gray hair, but
Yeah,
that just kind of
hear ya.
comes with the territory.
Sure
But
does.
I do get it, like, especially during the quarantine period. I had a lot of moments where I'm like, man, I just want to shave my head because it's like it's work. Like right now, like look, it's work. That's why I was wearing a hat. But now the cat's out
Yeah.
of the bag, I'll keep the hat off.
Yeah. I mean, had anybody actually cut your hair other than yourself? Like, I mean,
Not for
Colleen,
about,
did Colleen do your neck maybe? Or do you do that 100% yourself?
no, I mean, I did everything until I went to the barbershop. I'd say once I turned about probably 15,
Yeah.
I stopped. I started shaving my head. But before that, like I grew up. We had a family barber that my dad
Uh-huh.
went to since he was like 8 years old. That I went to with him, like growing up until I was like 15. So I always loved like the barbershop vibe and like hanging out,
Yeah.
and talking to the guys and all that stuff. So I enjoy that part of it. But I certainly do miss the ease of just shaving it off.
Yeah, that's a way better story than I was even anticipating, and maybe all we needed to do on the podcast at this point. But
Yeah, that was a good one.
yeah, you and Will. I mean, Will just got a haircut.
I did.
And it's a good looking haircut, Will.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
I've always cut my hair too. Like I've probably had like six haircuts where somebody else cut my hair in like the last, I don't know, 10 or 15 years. And every time I've had somebody else cut it, I always end up like doing it myself after. So I get that. Maybe I just haven't found the right barber. It sounds like I need to come to Montreal and get a haircut.
Yeah, the guy is good. He goes to like the NHL awards and does like the haircuts for like the NHL players and stuff like that. So it's probably bad that I like started at the top because
Yeah,
after this,
probably.
I'm probably just gonna shave it off again.
That's all right though. Hey, you deserve it, I think. And what a good looking guy to be the spokesperson for you got to plug it. What's the name of the barbershop?
Bloke.
Bloke. And a great name too, because it's like that back in the like 20s sort of, especially with
Good looking
those
bloke.
yeah, absolutely. Very cool. All right, well, we better get back on topic because I want to be respectful of your time, like I've said. So, we got these questions prepared. Had a chance to look them over. Feel free to riff and talk as much as you want to talk. And if I'm not going to interrupt you, if we end up only doing 2 or 3 questions because they're so good and your answers are so good, that's all fine with me. So what we've done up until this point, we've in our first 3 episodes, we talked basically just about like foundations and technique and some of the things that I think are really important for goalkeepers to develop good habits. We're not gonna do any of that today. We're just kind of gonna talk to you and hear a little bit about your story and kind of see if we can take away something that maybe could help a young goalkeeper or inspire somebody to do this. And I'm also a big kind of, before we get going, big believer that you got to be kind of brutally honest out there with kids and parents about like, it's not realistic to think that we're all going to be professional athletes. The numbers aren't there, but at the same time, like, it's okay to really pursue something that you're passionate about. And I think it's okay to have that balance as long as you're realistic. So I don't want to put the message out there that everybody listening can go out there and be a pro goalkeeper, but everyone can certainly try, if it's something that they're really passionate about and see what happens. So, that's my disclaimer. So now we'll get into it. All right. So first question, where'd you grow up? What was your soccer experience like?
I'm a Cleveland guy, or a suburban Cleveland guy, I guess. About 30 minutes east of Cleveland. So coming on with 2 Pittsburgh-based guys it's like tearing at me a little bit.
Easy.
We'll leave that to the side. So I'm sure it's like very similar to a lot of Midwest guys, especially my age, where we didn't have the academy system at that point, and even if we did, like, there's no MLS club in Cleveland, just like there's no MLS club in Pittsburgh. So we would have been, an offset of maybe like the Crew or something if there was. But that being said, like, I don't even know if I would have been involved in it because I played soccer, I played basketball, I played baseball, kicked for the football team, and I enjoyed doing all that. And I wouldn't trade it for to go back and just focus solely on soccer as of 13, 14, whatever, like a lot of the kids do now.
Right.
You know, I think a lot of the skills that I learned in basketball with, you know, my footwork, my eye-hand coordination, my explosiveness, stuff like that, it all helped me become a better goalkeeper. I think if I would have just been a goalkeeper through and through, maybe I wouldn't have developed those types of skills, and maybe I would have gotten burned out over the course of time. But so yeah, like any Midwestern kid at that time, I started at like the YMCA league as a very young kid. Went through all the same travel, rec, premier, dabbled in ODP a little bit, but that wasn't really my thing because of basketball in the winter. So you know, I went from, we had a good club team. We won like the state cup, you know, every year, and went to regionals. I never won regionals, but did fairly well. But we weren't like a nationally known team. Like we were always like the overachievers, and because of that, like I wasn't really recruited. I didn't go to the big winter tournaments, you know, in Disney or Arizona or Texas or wherever they were, because I was playing basketball. And I actually got recruited more for basketball out of high school than I did for soccer.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, not for like high level Division I. Like it wouldn't have been the same level as me going and playing at Akron for soccer, but mostly Division II schools. But that was just too much running for me. You know, like I got fed up with running up and down a 94-foot court. And Akron was in the backyard, and you remember Kia, right?
Yeah. Who doesn't know Kia?
Yeah. He was good friends with the coach at Akron at the time, Ken Lola, and he put a good word in for me, and I came in as like the 5th goalkeeper maybe on the team my freshman year, got redshirted, and you know, I could talk about that story for a lot longer if you'd like, but yeah, that was kind of my course to Akron at least.
Right. Yeah, that's super cool, man. I mean, I've always kind of known a little bit of that, but haven't really necessarily heard you kind of put it all out there. That resonates with me, and probably resonates with Will too. I mean, I was the same sort of thing. I was a South Carolina kid who was sort of a recruited walk-on at Clemson, and, you know, kind of had to bide my time. And then even still at Clemson, I was only ever kind of like a, you know, part-time starter, and I wasn't like a out-and-out guy until I transferred to the College of Charleston for my 5th year. So, and then Will had a similar thing. He sort of go at Pitt, you know, didn't really play at Pitt, and then was a starter when he transferred to Westchester when they won a national championship run. So that's really cool to hear. And I think it's cool to hear for anybody who's listening that, it's mostly about getting your foot in the door, right? It's mostly about getting the opportunity, and then from there, kind of what you can make of it, and having the right attitude. And the other big takeaway, I think it's interesting now, because even, you know, we're old guys now, but all the kids that we work with, and, you know, I don't know if you're involved with much coaching or get to see that, not even yet with your kids, probably they're too young, but just this crazy sort of professionalization of youth sports. Like, I'm not sure that, I don't know what it would like. I hope for my kids that they're able to play multiple sports and try everything and do all the kind of different stuff, because I think there's so much value in that, making them more well-rounded, probably preparing them to be more successful at high level. You see, you know, obviously I like to talk about Clemson a lot. Clemson football, the head coach there is such a big proponent of recruiting multi-sport athletes, because they're just more versatile. They're more durable. They don't get injured as often. And they're, you know, longer shelf life. So I'm afraid for I just think that where we're at right now with youth sports, we're going to reach like a breaking point, and it's all going to explode. And I think there will be opportunity again for kids to really get into multiple sports again, because we're going to start seeing all the negatives of the focusing. But so awesome to hear that. So I'm going to shut up now, and we'll try to transition into something different. But and maybe we can kind of touch on that in these next sort of things about kind of Akron and your experience there. Because I think the next question sort of might get into that. So I've always felt like you were, even from the kind of the first times I saw you as a college goalkeeper and worked with you back then, I've always felt like you were a very technical goalkeeper. I mean, blend of athletic, sort of natural athleticism and technique. Hold on. At what point along your sort of developmental path did that become a priority for you?
I'll be quite honest, and I'm not saying this because I'm on this podcast, but I think training with Aaron with the City Stars was very helpful in that. We had goalkeeper coaches at Akron, and one of them was pretty good. My first year was Jeremy Proud, who I think he's still in college soccer, if I'm not mistaken. I think he might have been like associate head coach at Louisville or something.
Yeah.
He was good. He was a good goalkeeper coach, but it was his first year as a goalkeeper coach, so he was still feeling some things out. And then after that was Dave Gifford, who's the head coach at VCU now.
Right.
But he was a good goalkeeper coach too, but he was more invested in like the full team aspect of things.
Right.
So it wasn't as focused in my Akron training sessions as it probably is now, and probably is at a lot of other schools now. So when I came to train with you guys at Cleveland that first year, and we were doing the certain exercises where it was just footwork, and I wasn't really understanding why we were doing it, because it wasn't always the frame of the goal. It wasn't always necessarily applicable to a game situation. But then I realized that it wasn't just wasting time. It was footwork for the sake of developing that for other parts of the position. So when I started really studying the position after that and really locking into it, which I thought I already did, but clearly I didn't know as much as I thought I did. That really turned me on to the details of the position. And as I got out of college, before I joined Cleveland City Stars, the last place I was with for an MLS camp was with Seattle Sounders. And at the time, it was Casey Keller it was his first year back in the U.S. And he talked about a technical goalkeeper. He was an unbelievably technical goalkeeper. And so even just spending the few weeks that I spent with them to see how he approached the position, it was very beneficial to the way I saw the game, the position, and I really enjoyed it. And since then, like I've become very detail oriented, and maybe even sometimes to my detriment, where you begin thinking about what your body's supposed to be doing instead of just letting your body do it. And I think that's a catch-22 for a lot of goalkeepers.
Yeah, I think we're in a really interesting time now I think because of the internet, because of sort of the globalization of soccer and sports and now goalkeeping, like I'm starting to see a really interesting blend, whereas maybe certain parts of the world and certain areas were known for more technical goalkeepers. Like I'd probably say in the U.S. in the 90s and early 2000s, we were kind of known for having technical goalkeepers. And now you're seeing this sort of blend of the more athletic styles, the more sort of improvisational styles of, continental Europe and South America, and all of it's kind of coming together. And so I'm trying to figure out, like, I think you can only teach kind of what you know and what you've been exposed to, but like, where's that all come together? You know what I mean? And you even talked too about like getting kind of tangled up in your own thought and your own, am I doing this right? Where I'm sure you've been around now tons of guys too, who you can tell don't think at all.
Yeah.
And they just have an uncanny ability to keep the ball out of net. You know what I mean? So, and finding that balance, I don't know what's better. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah. And even beyond that, I've been on teams with guys that have similar profiles to me, and then guys that are completely different than me. So as a goalkeeper coach, it's got to be, you have to be open to teaching both ways, or just letting both ways work themselves out. And if you see something that you think could be better for someone, then you point it out. Do you remember Eric Kronberg?
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, he was a massive guy, 6'5", big guy. Not light-footed at all, but he could make saves that I couldn't make because of his frame. But at the same time, I could make saves that he couldn't make because of my ability to get across the goal and use my feet. So when you talk about, I know one of your big things right now is not talking about blocking shapes and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But when you're 6'5", it's a
that's all
little
you can
easier to do that, right? For
Yeah.
me, and for Will, I imagine it's much different. We can't block as successfully as a guy that's the size of Manuel Neuer.
Yeah, but you make that sound like you're like not a tall guy.
I mean, I'm 6'1". I'm not like tiny, but
I think you're taller than that.
with my hair now.
Yeah, that's your hair now, especially. Will, put you on the spot. Ask the next question.
See. Okay. Who is the most influential coaching figure on your goalkeeping / soccer development, and why?
I think the guy that comes to mind is the guy that I had my first year in Montreal, and then when Jesse Marsh came in, he was sent with the reserve team, and then he came back up with the first team for a few years after that. And his name is Youssef Daha, and he's the goalkeeper coach at Vancouver now. But you talk about different types of goalkeeper coaching and what you focus on, and as Hunter was saying, a lot of goalkeepers in the U.S. come up very technical and thinking about their technique, and you want to get across the goal the right way and set and all these things, and there's a lot of value in that, 100%, and I think that that's the most important piece of goalkeeping. But Youssef is a Moroccan guy that he's at that point, at least, he was studying a lot of what that part of the world did for goalkeeper training. I think he's evolved maybe a little bit now, and he studies more European goalkeeper training, Italian goalkeeper training. But at that point, I was jumping over sticks and through gates, and it was it seemed like madness to me, but it also opened something up in my head where, while you want to do everything in a technical way, you need to keep the ball out of the net first and foremost, and whatever way possible that is. If you're sprinting across the goal to shut down an angle, it's better than getting across the goal slowly by shuffling or
Absolutely.
So he was very influential, and I think one of the big things that's some goalkeeper coaches maybe forget or don't put as much emphasis on is the idea that you need to have especially at the professional level, you need to have a good relationship with your goalkeeper, because you're seeing that guy every day for 9 to 10 months. And if that person is not enjoying coming into training every day and not willing to put his body on the line for you every day, then he's not going to perform at a high level. And Youssef was a master at that. And to this day, I have a great relationship with him, and we talk all the time still.
That's awesome. That's cool, because it's not necessarily what you'd expect to hear. Hearing first you talk about the things kind of you value at the position, and then the coach that you felt like was most influential that you end up connecting the most with is maybe not even the coach. It's not about it's not even necessarily about what you do in training. I think you get to a point where it's about having a trust and having a willingness to have those conversations. About what maybe they think you might need to do differently, or ways you can get better, and you not being able to feel, and you're not feeling threatened when you're hearing that. And I think it's really hard probably to get to that sort of level with goalkeeper coach, especially at the pro level. There's just so many factors, and then we can do a whole podcast on that sort of stuff too. But just great insight. I might skip a few things here. I don't know. I think if you could quickly sum up kind of what your pro career has looked like, and kind of how you got to be an MLS starter. I know that's not necessarily easy to do quickly, but because we kind of already talked about the thing I want to talk about kind of the most, that I think will be the most valuable here, but I don't want to leave out anything important about your background.
Yeah, no, I think that my story about becoming an MLS starter is maybe the most valuable to young goalkeepers, because you can apply it to any part of, not only just being a goalkeeper, but living your life in general. And for me, it was when I came out of Akron, we were a top 5, top 10 team every year. So I was figuring that I would leave Akron, get drafted, and not make millions of dollars, because that's not what MLS was about, but certainly like be in MLS and like not worry about doing 14-hour bus trips for USL teams.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm watching the MLS draft, and at that point I think it was only 2 rounds, and there's like 12 teams in the league. So I didn't get drafted. I didn't get drafted in the supplemental draft. I think there was like 5 or 6 goalkeepers that got taken in front of me. One of which was Stephen Fry. All the other ones are no longer playing. But that was my first disappointment in terms of not being seen the way I at least saw myself.
Right.
So then I got called into DC United camp, went there for about a week, left on my own accord because I just didn't think that there was going to be a great fit there. I would have been like a 3rd or 4th goalkeeper at best. 3rd goalkeeper at best, probably 4th goalkeeper is more of what they were looking at that point for me. I left there to go to camp with Puerto Rico Islanders, which was a disaster. That was in Tampa at University of South Florida, and the goalkeeper there was Bill Gaudet, which everything is cyclical. So remember that name because it's coming back in a couple minutes. So I leave there after a week because I didn't want to live I wouldn't mind living in Puerto Rico at that time. I don't want to live in Puerto Rico now. But at that point, the club was actually all right. Like they were one of the better, more competitive teams in the league, but like everything else about it was just bad. Yeah. Left there and got a call from Seattle to go to preseason with them in Argentina and train with, like I said earlier, with Casey Keller and Tom Dutra is the goalkeeper coach there. And it was an opportunity I couldn't pass up. So I went down there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, something like that, trained with them. I have a picture of me and Casey Keller in a training session like the first day there. I'm in like full indoor soccer pants, like padding, like full goalkeeper kit, because that's what he trained in.
Yeah, so, Casey Keller gear.
To train in. So again, after like the time I was done there, they said, listen, we can offer you a contract, but you're going to play with like our PDL team, and you're probably going to be like a 4th goalkeeper, maybe 3rd goalkeeper. And it was like $12,500 was the minimum salary in MLS at that point. So I'm like, well, I don't think living in Seattle on that money is going to be, that great of a life. So I ended up, signing with Cleveland. Around the same time you were coming back from South Africa, I believe. Yeah. And so that's kind of where we merged and became closer. So even then, like it was, I think I played maybe 10 games that year. And honestly,
you probably should have played more games than that.
Whatever. I mean, that's how it is as a goalkeeper though, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times for sure. If you're not the veteran guy, they're probably not going to go with you. But I think I was fortunate that the club folded, as bad as that sounds, because I had a 2-year contract and I was able to get out of that. And then I went to Crystal Palace Baltimore, who promised all this financial funding from Crystal Palace in the UK. Well, Crystal Palace in the UK went bankrupt about 3 weeks after I signed. So all the funding for that organization went out the window. And similar to Cleveland City Stars, by the end of the season, like we had our coach dressing as a player coach.
Yeah.
Quick side note to him, he founded
True Socks. Yeah.
Which now he's like a multi-millionaire and like I don't know. But anyway, so
Andrew Marshall, another Pittsburgh connection. Andrew Marshall, who played with you there on Crystal Palace Baltimore, then came on to play here in Pittsburgh while I was here. Now he's like a big rep for True Socks as well. So
yeah. So small world, soccer world. Again, I got more games that year, probably 25 to 30 games. By the end of the year, we were just terrible. But I had a good year. But I had one, like probably the best game I ever had in my career was in Montreal, in the middle of summer. We played like a 1 p.m. game after a 14-hour bus trip from Baltimore to Montreal the previous night. And I remember saying, I think it was actually to Marshall on the field before the kickoff, said, dude, my knees feel like they're made of glass right now. But it goes to show you, like, you never know, like, when that opportunity is going to come.
Nope.
And, like, Montreal was, like, the team in that league at that point. Like, you wanted to be there. They were going to MLS in a couple of years. And I had 13 saves. The GM came to me in the parking lot after the game, gave me his business card. And, you know, I ended up cutting my season a little bit short that year because of a knee issue. And again, I lucked out because Crystal Palace had fold financially too. And I had a 2-year contract there. So I got out of that contract, got invited to a trial in Montreal that January, which if it's the only time you've ever been in Montreal, don't go in January. The worst place in the world in January. But I get up there, going from this guy's house that used to play for the team. I had a connection with him from Cleveland. I was staying at his parents' house, going to the trial. My nose hairs were like freezing on the way, like to and from the car into the facility. So I get in there, and the second day I dislocate my finger. And so my trial's over. It was supposed to be a week trial. Trial's over. There was another guy there. I forget his name. He's got a Polish name, but he was a professional. He played in Portland for a little bit, and then he went to Europe. But I thought for sure that they were just going to sign him because, like, he was pretty good as well. And obviously, like, I couldn't show myself. So I went home and was kind of at a crossroads and didn't know what the next step was going to be. Then I get a call back from Montreal about 2 weeks later, and they say, hey, we're going to go to Arizona in a couple of weeks, and we'd like to have you join us if you're, you know, physically able to. So I'm able to go down there, do the camp with them for like 7 or 8 days against MLS teams. And that's when they signed Bill Gaudette, the guy that I was with in Puerto Rico for a little bit. And like I was
king of Puerto Rico.
Like for them to bring me in, it was like, okay, we'll give this guy, I think I was making like, it doesn't matter what I wasn't making anything basically.
Yeah.
And like Bill was making a ton of money. Like more, like he was making more than what a lot of MLS guys were making playing for the USL team because they figured he'd be the guy that transitioned with them to MLS. And he got hurt like seven games into the season, and I took over and had a really good year. I won the Golden Glove or whatever they called it in NASL or whatever the league was called at that point. So many times. And even at that, like Jesse Marsh, he was somewhat hesitant to sign me to an MLS contract because I'd never been in an MLS environment before. But he had signed Greg Sutton to a contract, and Greg was backing me up for the second half of that year. So for me, it was like I felt very like I was frustrated by that, and I saw like how some of the politics and all those things get involved in it. But again, like I say all that because it was just there's two things that are at play. One is there's always obstacles if you want to get to the highest level. Not everyone's a Bill Hamid or these homegrown guys that are starters.
Sean Johnson,
like they walk in the league and they start games. Like there are very, very few of those types of guys. So, and on the other side, like guys like with my story, they don't exist anymore either because that pathway from, college to USL to back up at MLS and then starting as a starting goalkeeper for, 6 years, that doesn't really exist anymore either. So
absolutely.
It's all about keeping the right perspective because, I went from being first goalkeeper in college to second to first to third to second to I've been in all of the positions, and that's given me a perspective that, not a lot of guys maybe have and can't handle. So certainly everybody wants to be the starting goalkeeper at every club that they're at, but you also have to approach it as if you're fighting for your job every day.
Well, that's kind of perfect. I mean, I don't know if you did that on purpose, but you kind of set it up perfectly to kind of talk about what I wanted to talk about next. And how many years, I mean, up until this season, how many years had you kind of been the starter on the MLS team in Montreal consecutively, more or less?
I think about 6.
Yeah. That's a lot. I mean, that's a long run for an MLS goalkeeper these days,
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as an American.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, absolutely something to be proud of. then I was watching, as the tournament started up this year down, all the crazy stuff with COVID, and you guys go down to Orlando to do the, everybody's down there. I don't even know specifically how that worked for you guys. I know it was crazy.
It was
but
awful.
but the big thing I wanted to ask you about, and kind of appreciate you being willing to talk about now, is this year you haven't been playing games. You know what I mean? You haven't been starting the games. And so can you talk about that a little bit? Talk about what kind of that challenge that's created for you, and then if that's changed your approach, what you're doing, what your goals are, and what all that kind of looks like.
Yeah, man, it's been quite the 12-month stretch. I ended up actually the last, I think, 2 games of the MLS season last year. They made a change. We got knocked out of the playoffs, and they wanted to give the other guy a couple games. And for me, it was a long season mentally. There was a coaching change and some things that go along with that type of stuff. And I was at a point where mentally I was pretty exhausted. So it wasn't like I wasn't against it at that point. I was pretty okay with just like stepping aside, and I didn't want to cause a scene or cause stir or anything like that. And
almost that level of relief that those things are such a struggle that it's almost like, on the one hand there's some relief that you get a break from it, but the other hand there's that anxiety that this might be my job.
Yeah, exactly. And I went into the off season, and I still have this year and next year on my contract. So I knew like it was impossible for them to just like cut me and whatever. But certainly, like, trades were floating through my head, not like coming from me, but like, I don't know what the club was thinking. The expansion draft came and I wasn't protected. So that was an anxious period. I was in New York City with Colleen and a couple friends, and I got the call from our what is he, our chief soccer officer, I think his title is.
Okay.
Said, hey, we're just letting you know, like, we're not going to protect you in the draft tomorrow. We don't think somebody will take you because the number that I'm at is not ideal with taking on to a salary a budget or whatever.
Right.
Combine that with my age, and it probably wouldn't have been the smartest thing for a club. But once my name came out on the not protected list, like, my picture was like all over MLSsoccer.com as like one of the 5 guys that each team should take. I'm like,
yeah.
So like, I didn't want to end up in Miami. Nashville, like, I would have been fine with Nashville because it's basically a Midwest city. It's close to Ohio. But at the end of the day,
tell that to people in Nashville.
Yeah, I wasn't really like looking to leave Montreal either. I'm still not,
right?
Because I've been here. This is my 10th year here, so we have a great life here. My 3 kids were all born here. And coming into this season, we got a new coach, obviously, with Thierry Henry, and I have a lot of respect for him and his career and the way he sees the game. And like, I've had some really awesome conversations with him, and in terms of how he sees the tactics of everything, and certain things that he's seen and dealt with over the course of his not only coaching career but playing career. And that to me is awesome. But at the same time, I've been, like you said, I haven't played a game this year. Couple that with the fact that we just finished playing only our 8th game of this season in league play.
Insane.
So there hasn't been an opportunity even, really.
Yeah.
Like, we'll play 3 games. I think we played 2 games to start the season, in addition to our CONCACAF Champions League games that we were playing. And then we had the 3-month lockdown. Then we played 3 more games, and then we had a 2-week quarantine when we came back, and like another 2-week prep period for games. And then we just finished up 3 games, and then we'll have another 3 games, and then who knows? I think we're supposed to have 12 games. But the opportunity hasn't really presented itself to really make a mark.
Right.
And And to be fair, I didn't have a great preseason. I still had a lot of stuff mentally like that was affecting me from the previous year, and I had lost confidence. And as a goalkeeper, if you lose confidence, you're in big trouble. I think I've gained a lot of that back, but the way that this year has played out, in terms of the stoppages and then dealing with, we had a collective bargaining agreement situation at the start of the year. I'm a player rep for our team. And then after the lockdown, there was another one because the CBA was never ratified. So in order to restart the season, we had to redo all of that stuff. Had a lot of emotion involved in that, and trying to, put my mind where soccer wasn't, in terms of like, I'm basically like an administrator for the guys in my locker room now, more so than I am a goalkeeper. So you're being pulled in these directions. And then even this past couple of weeks, we've had, all these race related things with, teams boycotting, not playing games. And again, like, I was basically guiding those conversations. So my energy and focus has been pulled in so many different directions this year that it's been very, it's been exhausting, to be quite honest. And it's been the furthest thing from actually just focusing on goalkeeping.
Right.
I had a good conversation with a goalkeeper coach just last week in terms of trying to refocus that now. Because when I was in Orlando, I thought I thought I had a great 4 weeks down there, because my focus was nowhere else. We were in a bubble. There was nothing else we had to deal with. All of the administrative stuff, I guess I'll call it, was put to the side because it was finalized. And I was just, playing goalkeeper and training and probably sleeping more than I do because of kids.
Yeah. Of course.
That aside, when I got back to Montreal, we had the 2-week quarantine, got back into training, and all of the, the social justice stuff was going on. My focus got deterred again. So it's really, I don't care if I'm 34, if I'm 21, it's still hard to try to compartmentalize some of these things, especially when they're so important, because
of course, affects everything.
It's like a small part of, or sport in general is a small part of what's going on. And it'd be
so far down the priority list for everyone.
Yeah, be ignorant to push all that to the side just to focus on goalkeeping, even though that's my job first and foremost,
Yeah.
But I mean, that was a long-winded answer for your question, but in terms of how I'm seeing it, it's not ideal, but I think that if I was 28 and dealing with this, maybe I would ask for a move, because I would have more years in front of me. But I know that I have more years behind me than I do in front of me in this career. And I've been loyal to this club. This club's been loyal to me. So for me not to, give that loyalty back or that respect back, and approach training and approach my role with the team and the club in the right way, it would be disrespectful to the life that they've helped me develop here.
Right. Well, I think it's just, getting to kind of know you personally and watch what you've done and watch your career and watch the impact that you've been able to have, because the team's called the Impact, but, you've been a steady and really positive figure on the field for them. And it's also been very clear that you've been a really positive figure in the community up there, which has got to be an interesting dynamic and a challenge. And that's another something we could do a whole podcast on probably, but I don't want to take too much of your time. So we probably got time for maybe one more question. So I think if I got to pick for a minute, and then I'll let Will ask you something. So Will, I know you got something you want to ask, so come up with it after this. So I think just so that we can kind of come full circle, if you were talking to, 15-year-old Evan Bush, or, a kid out there today, what do you think is, and this doesn't have to do anything with what we've been talking about with GK4FREE, it doesn't have to do anything with technique or, that, what's kind of the one thing that you think is the most valuable, advice or tip or, piece of knowledge that you could give, to that young goalkeeper that, wants to do this, that wants to try it, that has talent, or maybe, any kid that's really passionate about something and they want to pursue that, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I think that is probably the answer. It has nothing to do with actually the position. It has to do with your love affair with the position.
Mm-hmm.
And being a goalkeeper can sometimes be a very lonely position on the field, as both of you guys know. It's a weird dynamic within a group because you're not with the group a whole lot. You're with your other goalkeepers for the majority of the training session, and then depending on your coach, you could spend a lot of time with the field players, or you could spend very little time. I've had a coach a couple of years ago where 4 out of the 5 days of the week, I wouldn't training days of the week, I wouldn't be with the field players at all. I didn't play one small-sided game the whole season, and it was probably my best season I ever had as a goalkeeper. But at the same time, you walk in the locker room, and these are guys that you haven't really communicated with and had dialogue with for the majority of the week. But because of that, you have to fall in love with the position, and you have to fall in love with the details of the position. You can't rely on other people pushing you because, I think one of the questions was how have my relationships been with other goalkeepers I've played with?
Yeah.
And this kind of brings it in where you can't always rely on the goalkeeper you're with to push you, because especially at the professional level, those guys are typically trying to take your job. And I've always prided myself to have good relationships like you and I have had. I remember when Troy Perkins came in, I'd heard some things about his relationships with other goalkeepers that I'm like, shit, like this isn't what I've always had good relationships. I don't want to have bad relationship because that's a miserable training environment. But my relationship with him was awesome. And I've always wanted that because I think in those small settings, you're able to exchange different ideas and what you see and what you've experienced and stuff like that. And the most enjoyable training environments I've ever been in were the ones that loved the position and the nuances and the details of the position as much as I had. And you were like that. Caleb was like that. Troy was like that. Donovan Ricketts was not so much that way. It's a cultural thing probably, but guys that love the position like to talk about it and talk about things that have happened in other games around the league and stuff like that. It's you're typically not talking about the full game. You're talking about did you see this
those moments
save or this mistake or stuff like that. That's enjoyable for me, and I think that if you have that passion as a kid to really dissect the game and dissect the details of the game of other goalkeepers and then bring that into your game, that's gonna really help with your progression.
Yeah. It's really, it blows my mind how many kids. Pittsburgh's a little bit unique, I think, because culturally it's a different place for soccer, even the kids that play soccer. And I've had some good keepers coming through here that have gone on to do some cool things. We've got, a couple have gone on to MLS academies and I think a couple with pro opportunities. But, it's unusual. And this is not speaking for those guys specifically or girls, but it's unusual. I would say majority of the kids I work with in our academy environment, you ask them about a game or a save or something and they'll look at you like you have three eyes. You know what I mean? And I just, in the back of my head, I just kind of think to myself, I think I might be wasting my time and I think I might be wasting your time because if you're not, like you said, if you're not in love with this, if you're not passionately pursuing it, and then I don't know if it's going to happen for you. I mean, you'd have to just be – and there are plenty of super talented athletes I've worked with at a high level, but those are the outliers. They're the ones that like you were referring to, the Bill Amids and the Sean Johnson. I'm not saying those guys aren't super passionate and in love with the position and work as hard as anyone else, but they've been that guy since the time they were 12 years old and have more opportunity than the rest of us are going to have. And, that's not necessarily what this is all about for the rest of us that tried to get there or like you that were able to get there. So I appreciate you sharing this with us and spending your time with us. And I would love to keep going and getting to answer all these questions, but you're
I think one more thing I want to add as you talk about that is, and we talked about my story a bit, is It's not all rainbows and butterflies. You're going to fail. There's going to be a
Yeah.
lot of failure. And
Yeah.
yeah, I've built a nice career, and I'm very proud of that. But I've had a lot of failures, both
Mm-hmm.
small and big, through the course of my career, and you have to be prepared for that, and you have to get yourself back up and get back at it if that's what you want.
Yeah. And what an incredible, what's so unique about this position and the experience of a goalkeeper, if you do it until you're 17 years old, or you're able to do it for longer than that, is you're going to deal with so many. It's unavoidable to deal with shit being dumped on your shoulders. You know what I mean? And the resiliency that you have to develop in doing that. And even just you're 13 years old and your team gives up a goal and you couldn't have done anything about it, but everybody on your team turns around and said, "Why'd you do that, Evan? Why'd you lose the game for us?" And you can magnify that as much as you want, but that's learning to deal with that prepares you for life, because life is the same thing. You know what I mean? Life is, you're going to be dealt with challenge after challenge after challenge, and how you choose to respond to those challenges will define your path. So that's awesome, man. Will, what do you got for Evan before we go?
Okay, so I'll try to make this quick, and I mean, you kind of were heading in that direction briefly there, but so when I think back on my kind of like development as a keeper and like coming up and from high school to college, there's just a couple moments here and there that have kind of acted as like a catalyst. It's kind of propelled me into, I don't know, maybe a higher level of playing or thinking about the position. Are there any moments like that for you that pop out in your head that like kind of was kind of like a turning point for you as a goalkeeper?
Yeah, and honestly, a lot of them are moments of failure. Like I said, so you can choose to get mad and resentful and whatever you want. But I remember a specific instance. I remember this play like it was yesterday, because it's still like I felt like I let my team down. It was 2007 NCAA tournament against South Florida. I think it was the second round to go to the Sweet 16, and like we were a much better team than South Florida. But the game went into overtime, and I came for a cross that it was like a lofted ball that if I should or shouldn't have gone to get, that's beside the point. I went for it and I didn't get it, and they ended up scoring like right off of it. I think it got knocked down and they scored, and we got knocked out of the tournament. And seeing the the guys on my team be, especially like the senior guys that was the last game they'll ever play, and feeling responsible for that, that really kind of revved me up to be better going into the next year. And I got better in a lot of ways. I made sacrifices to going into my senior year, where I went and played PDL in Cape Cod. And at that point, like I didn't want to go to Cape Cod in the summer. Is great, but I didn't really want to go to Cape Cod in the summer, because I had a girlfriend. I had friends. I had to make a decision whether I was going to be, really attack that next season and attack trying to be a pro, or if I wanted to enjoy my, the rest of my college days and whatever. So I went to Cape Cod, and it was a lonely experience, but it was also a great experience because I was able to develop under, coaching staff that didn't really, to put it bluntly, they didn't give a shit who I was or where I came from. They didn't care that I went to Akron, because at that point I was still under the impression like, oh, I go to Akron, and it's treat me better because I'm an Akron Zip. They didn't care about that, and that was good for me. So I went there, and I went into my senior season with a new focus and energy and mentality, and so that moment sticks out because I try to avoid those feelings as much as possible. In terms of letting your team down, and I've certainly let my team down, more times than I can count since then. But it wasn't because of things that I didn't do. Like I don't want to have regret in not being prepared mentally or physically for a game. So because of that moment, I kind of shifted my mindset, and I think it helped me prepare myself for more failures down the road and being able to bounce back from those.
Perfect.
That's awesome, man. And I just love how many times you talk about failure. And I'll probably even put something about that in the title. Not in a way that makes you sound like a failure, but just because I think that is so important to the goalkeeping and to life, and could get even deeper. And the other stuff, I selfishly hope that we can maybe find time to do this again in 6 months or a year, and because I do also want to talk to you about what it's been like, because there's all this other side to soccer and to all the stuff that we're doing here, and I also want to be able to talk about what it means to live a good life and to be put family first, and I think you're just a great example of that. And so I'd love another opportunity to talk about that stuff with you. I wanted to get in that today, but I had too many questions here. So Evan, I really appreciate your time, man. I've always valued your friendship, and I'm thankful that I had the opportunity to play with you and to get to know you and to be your roommate and all those road trips back in 2009.
I don't know. One quick thing before we get off. I was going to mention it, but do you remember the last road trip? I think it was in Vancouver.
Yeah.
City Stars, and our team meals were going to Jan's room, and she would give us peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for our professional soccer team meal.
I don't know if that was as good as the team meals in our professional soccer preseason camp in Xenia, Ohio, with the garbage bags full of pasta. But yeah, I think the good news is if you're a USL player these days, life seems to be a little bit better for you. But
I'd say
that for me it's just a big warning sign, because this league's sort of always gone like this. So maybe get ready for one of these.
For some clubs, the ones
yeah.
that are supported by MLS clubs, I think will be fine.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah. Anyway, man, I appreciate you, and I wish you the best. I wish you and Colleen and your kids the best, man. And if I can ever do anything to help, I'm never too far away.
Awesome.
And I just, I guess I got to embrace the fact that you say I'm from Pittsburgh now, but I grew up in South Carolina, man. All right, we will. We'll be in touch soon, man. Thanks for joining us on GK for free. Everybody, thanks for listening. Go follow Evan on his socials. Evan, what are all your handles?
I think Instagram is Evan Bush 1. Twitter is ebushel1. I think.
Okay.
To be honest, that's.
Look for the blue check, and then you'll find Evan Bush in social media land.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys. All right, this has been Hunter Gilstrap and Will Marshall and Evan Bush for GK for free. Everybody, thank you. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. All right.